Ever since the release of James Gunn's Superman in the summer of 2025, my channel has been a pretty reliable source when it comes to his DCU, the inner politics at Warner Brothers in the aftermath of his movie, which flopped, as well as my coverage of the bidding war between Paramount and Netflix for the purchase of Warner Brothers. Along the way, there were plenty of other channels that made a lot of promises to their viewers just for the sake of generating some clicks, and while I'm not trying to take a dig at them personally, on my end, I did my best to steer away from that kind of stuff because I didn't want to guarantee things that were still unknown, and that's also why I made less videos about the topic in general over the past few months, because there was simply so much speculation that it was important for me to see how things played out before really giving my full analysis here. Well, now there's been a development since Paramount's attempt to squash Netflix's acquisition deal with Warner Brothers has been successful, and Netflix, as of today, appear to be out of the picture, whereas Paramount are moving full steam ahead in their takeover of Warner Brothers, and by extension, the DC brand. Now, I'm sure there's no shortage of videos about how a deal like this could potentially affect the entire entertainment industry as a whole, and most likely not in a great way when it comes to job opportunities and healthy competition, but in this video, I'm going to focus more on what I believe the status currently is with James Gunn's DCU, what possible scenarios we could see moving forward, and I'm also going to weigh in on what I believe Zack Snyder's odds are of making some type of DCEU return and when something like that could potentially happen, if at all. And before we dive in, on this rare occasion, I will allow myself to do a bit of a victory lap that perhaps viewers of this channel and new viewers could possibly appreciate. According to Grok, I was not only the first YouTube channel to certify James Gunn's Superman movie a box office flop when the mainstream media was presenting it as a success, I was also the first channel to report that following Superman, James Gunn had been de facto quietly demoted behind the scenes at Warner Brothers, with his Batman Brave and the Bold movie being sidelined in favor of Matt Reeves' second Batman movie. In addition, very early on after Superman's release, I accurately reported that Warner Brothers PR were falsely declaring James Gunn's Superman a huge win in order to boost their stock price, and this was before there was concrete talk of them getting purchased. Finally, when Scoopers had reported that a Saudi group planned to buy Warner Brothers, I was the first to say that this would only happen if they would financially back a local American company, and that Paramount was definitely a viable possibility. And for those who sometimes ask me, why do you have to keep reminding people of your achievements? The truth is, because I'm proud of my work, and if you enjoy getting exclusive industry analysis from somebody who has experience working in this field, and you aren't already subscribed to my channel, please take a second to do that now, as it would really help an independent entertainment news reporter like myself.
Do it.
It's no secret that James Gunn has had a pretty tough time in his role as co-CEO of DC Studios since Superman underperformed at the box office and the ratings decline of Peacemaker Season 2, and to an extent, I think he kind of earned it. After all, upon Gunn's arrival at Warner Brothers in 2022, he had famously fired all the DCEU cast members that weren't his wife and declared that he had a new and improved vision for DC. But rather than launching the amazing DC universe that he had promised, Gunn ended up achieving quite the opposite. And however you may feel about Gunn's Superman and Peacemaker, one thing is certain: Gunn failed to create a crowd-pleasing universe with enough mass appeal worldwide, but especially here in the US. And oddly enough, when Netflix were seemingly going to take over Warner Brothers, we didn't see much enthusiasm from Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos about James Gunn, as he only seemed to enjoy Matt Reeves' Batman and Penguin. In fact, the only time Sarandos even mentioned Gunn at all was when he told Congress that Gunn's Superman movie had underperformed, which is why it was rushed to streaming, something that I had reported on at least 6 months prior.
However, routinely, movies that underperform.
And even after Netflix thought they had the winning bid, in spite of these kind of frantic efforts from James Gunn to do interviews with shills and with newspapers that would speak to him to try to kind of build his profile, his contract was only extended for 6 months until spring 2027 in order to give him a chance to finish his Man of Tomorrow movie. And now with Paramount pushing Netflix aside and taking over themselves, I would say that things just got even worse for James Gunn. Because in Netflix's case, even if their CEO didn't like James Gunn's work, he was at least more aligned with James Gunn's aggressive political messaging. In Paramount's case, I think Gunn has a double problem. First of all, purely on an entertainment level, I don't think David Ellison especially likes Gunn's vision for the DCU, something that Cosmic Book News were early to report on, so shout out and props for that. And secondly, I don't think that Ellison, who is known to have more right-leaning views, is a huge fan of Gunn's blunt messaging either. But while I know everybody wants me to say that Gunn will be fired tomorrow morning, I think that scenario doesn't seem very likely. For starters, even if, let's say, the Ellison family's friendship with the current US president could possibly be somewhat helpful to get the Paramount purchase cleared with regulators, these things don't typically happen overnight. Realistically, it could potentially take anywhere between 6 months to a year for Paramount and Ellison to even take over the reins creatively at Warner Brothers, and with James Gunn's contract running until 2027, it's not likely that they're going to terminate it before that, unless maybe Gunn himself does really wacky and unexpected things that they have to address. Otherwise, I think it's safe to say that Gunn will oversee the release of Supergirl, Lanterns, Clayface, and Man of Tomorrow, as he has always planned. With that being said, unless those movies unexpectedly generate billions of dollars in revenue for Paramount, it's hard to imagine that Gunn's DCU will continue beyond that. So the big question is, if not James Gunn, who will take over the role of the DC franchise boss? And while I'm sure there's a lot of people rooting for Zack Snyder's return to take over that role, and perhaps his odds now are better than they've been in the past decade, there's no guarantee that he will make a return, and even if he does, it could just be for one movie, perhaps to properly tie up his universe, especially if you consider that the DCEU cast of his movies isn't getting any younger. More realistically, there is a real possibility that David Ellison would ultimately let the DC franchise cool off for a minute, and then perhaps reboot it at a later time. It's not an ideal situation for fans for sure, but at least it's possible. Yes, I know that Zack Snyder has a good relationship with the Saudi investors that contributed to the deal, but at the end of the day, the creative control lies in the hands of Ellison, so ultimately, he himself will have to decide what he wants to do. Personally, I've always maintained the same opinion of Snyder. There are certain aspects of his movies that I liked, like the cast and the visual style of them. I do hope that if he makes another movie, that there will be a well-written screenplay handed to him that he can work with, because I think that would really make a huge difference in terms of the overall quality. But with all that being said, for whatever it's worth, I do prefer Snyder over Gunn, because Gunn's more cynical and quirky approach to the DC universe simply doesn't work for me. Regardless of anything though, as I've been saying for a while now, if James Gunn's behavior has always seemed rather slippery and annoying over the past few years, I think Snyder has, if nothing else, proved to be quite the politician in recent months. On the one hand, he always speaks very highly of James Gunn publicly, like he did just today. On the other hand, Snyder has made every effort behind the scenes to rally his fan base and strengthen his own relationships with studios to create a potential path for his own return. Until now, I've said that I thought that the odds of Snyder returning were probably around 60%, but given the most recent developments, I would bump those odds up to 67%, which means that while there's certainly an improvement here, it's still not a sure thing. Also, even if let's say Snyder gets a movie approved, people may not even see it until 2029 or 2030, and so much could still happen till then. Aside from all of that, there was also a strange story that I considered reporting on, but to be honest, I wasn't sure if it was a hoax or not. There have been some screenshots circulating online, seemingly exposing James Gunn for having a burner account, which he uses to post compliments about James Gunn online, and while the story genuinely amuses me, and I wouldn't be shocked if it was true, I simply haven't been able to 100% verify it. What I really think is important now, especially when it comes to James Gunn, is the release of Supergirl, because if that movie doesn't perform significantly better than Superman at the worldwide box office, it could be another major blow to his DCU, and the worse it does, the worse it will be for Gunn. In any case, if you enjoy my honest takes and no-nonsense type of reporting, and you want to stay updated with DCU developments while also supporting what I do here, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really mean a lot to me. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I'm such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.